so she went to Scott.
So how much distance was there between where Dad lived and where you lived, Mom? Half an hour?
16 miles.
16
Yeah.
miles. But back then you had no transportation, so
No.
that was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. The only time Dad and I ever got together back then was if some of the girl up where I lived had a party, and they could talk Bill Cody into coming, but no, they couldn't talk him into coming because he was so big and fat nobody would go with him.
Mm-hmm. So you had to kind of get him fixed up.
So we had to get him fixed up in order to get Vince and him up there.
Well, tell me about the time Daddy rode his bicycle from.
Oh my goodness. Well, Mother was working over at the company store, and she could look right over at our house, you know. And I looked out, and there he sat on that bicycle. Somebody's with you. You had another boy with him.
Yeah.
And, well, I couldn't ask him to come in the house. Mother was probably over there watching. But I didn't even offer him a drink of water or nothing.
So he'd rode a bicycle
He
16
rode
miles.
a bicycle. Lordy sakes. How he ever done that, I do not know.
It was love, Mom.
I reckon.
Love.
I reckon.
So how long did y'all date?
Well, not very long then because we wrote notes back and forth to school. Opal Elkins and this other girl. They carried notes from me to him.
You still
and
got them.
Yeah, I've still got my
Thank
notes.
you.
They're in one of these books here. And then they'd come up. The only time we'd see each other would be every once in a while. Bill would bring a truckload of them up. We didn't see each other at football games either, did we?
No.
Okay, we're recording, Daddy.
Well, there was a carnival come to Madison in July. We had, I don't haven't got in contact with each other. Then I told her if she come down, I had a way back home. So we
come and got me.
I was working in a sawmill. And that day when I went down there, I didn't have any money because he paid on them every 2 weeks. And then I went down. Mr. McDermott was his name. I said, "I've got to have some money." I said, "There ain't no money. There ain't nothing to eat in the house. I need $5." He said, "Well, go up to the company store and get it." I said, "Well, no, I ain't gonna do that. I need the money." He kept on humming around. I said, "Well, what I've got a date tonight and I need some money." He said, "Why didn't you tell me that in the first place?" So he wrote me a check and I went up and cashed it for $5. Well, Betty, and who was to come with you? Geneva?
Nah, there wasn't nobody with me.
Okay. That's right. Come down by herself. Well, we met and I spent the whole $5 that night.
Where'd you all meet?
Huh?
Where'd you meet?
Well, I went to the carnival was there up above Mama's house.
Okay. How'd you get there, Mom?
And I think she went bus down.
I thought you had that ball or somebody.
Well, yeah,
come
okay,
and get
yeah,
me.
come and got you.
Yeah.
Well, when we got ready to go home that night, somebody took off on us. I didn't have no way home. I looked around and finally found Sherlock's and went to us back. Whoever it was brought us down here, I don't remember who it was now. But they evidently got a girl and took off and left us sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You had no way to get her home.
no one but Sherlock Ball finally consented to take her home.
Mama and Miss Miller was out walking up and down the road.
No, that's not the time.
It wasn't.
No. But anyway, when I got up there, Stella was sitting on the porch, rocking and crying. It was 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well, how old were you?
About
15.
14 or 15.
And I didn't have nerve enough to get out of the car. I told Sherlock to turn this thing around and get out of here. So
Daddy.
But I can remember about another time when I was up on Elk River on a different job. We had a rented house that time. And Eve Ruth and me was playing under the house like Mom did, playing cars. Well, anyway, I was digging under this clay, and there's an old damper in a stove like this one right here. Well, Eve Ruth got to crying about wanting to play with it, and I said, "No, it's mine. I'm not giving it to you." And Mom hollered down there and said, "Let her play with it." I said, "No, I'm not either." Well, she kind of got mad. Mom could get off the. When she got mad, I mean, she was mad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she kind of grabbed the switch and was going to come and give me a good whipping, so I took off running. And I was and there was a man going along with the wagon, and she hollered at him. I was getting ready to jump in the river. And she told that man to grab a hold of him, and he grabbed a hold of the back of my neck, and she whipped me all the way back. I mean, she like to wore me out.
Because of that damper.
Yeah, over that damper. Locked me in the bedroom, wouldn't let me out. I tried to climb up in the window. If I'd have got up in that window, it took off. Well, that night when Dad come in from work, he's wondering where I was at. Well, he always was the one that put me on his lap, and he said, "Well, it's time he's coming out here." And he got me on his lap and went out on the front porch, rocked me in the chair, and
Try to smooth things over.
Yeah. But that's another time. Another time I can remember when I must have been 12 or 13 years old, and Mom was got in the car, and they'd had Eve Ruth and Kip in the back end. I'm going to go with them. She wasn't going to take me. Well, I got mad. I was standing on and said something on the front porch. She got out of the car, got a broomstick, and she liked to beat me to death with that broomstick. And another time when I left home then. That's when I went in the Army. She beat me like a man.
And that was enough.
That was enough.
Didn't she ever whip Kip in?
I don't remember ever even saying nothing to Kip or Eve Ruth. But the thing that hurts me more than anything else is my dad. I know what he went through. Now, I don't believe I ever told him I loved him.
Dad, you'll be able to one day.
Huh?
You'll be able to one day.
But now my childhood, I'm just like Mom. When school turned out in the summertime, I had one job to do. On Monday morning, my dad told me if he was there to hoe the garden out, mow the grass, and the rest of the week was mine. We lived on the river, fished, run the hills like a deer. There's a big a beech nut tree back on the hill, back of the house that I would like to get. Everybody's initials was cut on that tree. My brother told me here a while back, he said, "I'd like for us to just try to get back up there and see if our initials was on that tree or not."
Probably would be.
Yeah. Somebody cut it down. But we had a swimming hole just like Mom did. And there was 5 of us, Don Miller and myself. Ode Hill was my cousin. Spence Hill's my cousin. And Buttercup was he was younger than us, but he still run around with us. And I mean, where we was at, it was always fishing and hunting, or fishing or hunting together. Man, where we had our swimming hole was a Hopkins hole.
I think I actually went in that swimming hole, Daddy.
Huh?
I think I've probably been in that swimming hole.
I don't know, I haven't been in it.
Well, when we was growing up, when we went to Mama's, we went to a swimming hole.
Well, that was up at Pond Fork.
Okay.
I mean, Laura Fork.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Seminole was just right up to the house. But good times.
So how long did you and Mommy date before you finally knew that she was the one?
Well, I wrote to her, and I was in the Army. She still got the letters. I didn't know we wrote that many to her.
Probably didn't have time.
Well, I was in Iceland, yeah. But when I come back out of the Army, I stayed home 2 days. And you know how restless a man gets. It took me a long time to get converted back to civilian life.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, Mom, I'm going to Charleston. Went over and got on the bus. I said, well, I'm going to look Betty up. I knew her address. So I stopped up in the west end of Charleston, or east end of Charleston. Got out on Washington Street and went 1209 Washington Street and knocked on the door. And I said, Betty home? I said, we don't have any Betty here. I said, this little street? No, little street's 2 blocks over. So I went over 2 blocks over and they knocked on the door and said, Betty home? Miss Gore come to the door and she said, no, she's working down at United Fuel. Well, I walked down to United Fuel and walked in the front desk there where the information, I said, is Betty Crum work here? And she said, yes, she's on the 2nd floor. So I got on the elevator and went up the 2nd floor and said, Mr. Reel's office. Well, I just opened the door and looked, and she looked up at me. I never seen such a look, no.
Well, yeah, I didn't know. I thought he was still in Europe. I didn't know he was over here. I hadn't heard from him for a long time. He'd been too busy.
So I said, what are you doing for lunch? And she said, well, I get off an hour. So we went down, where did we go?
Civilians Pharmacy across the street.
Yeah, had lunch together.
And that was the beginning.
That
And
was
that was
it.
Benny. I went down and I bought an old, she still got an old pair of earrings I bought. And for all of her perfume, Blue Waltz perfume was nigger perfume. And in August I asked her to marry me and she said, no, let's just wait a year and see what's going on. So we dated all that year and went to carnivals and so forth and so on that year.
He would either come up, he would either go home with me for the weekend or I'd go home with him for the weekend.
So on the day that the Japanese were surrendered, I guess me and her throwed a party.
We cavorted all night.
Yeah, we cavorted
anyway,
all night long.
with everybody else in Charleston.
And then after the year, she'd go home with me on a weekend, and I'd go home with her on a weekend. And in July, or in June, she decided we might get married. So she set a date for July. We got married on the 6th of July.
When?
What, the 5th, wasn't it?
Yeah.
5th of July. And at my cousin's house in Charleston on Lewis Street, her uncle married us. He was a chaplain in the Army and took off and come up to marry us. So that night we got on the train on our honeymoon in Cincinnati. We stopped at the Pritchard Hotel in Huntington. I did. What was 603, wasn't it?
Honey, I don't know.
Room. There wasn't an air conditioner that night. In the middle of July.
All night.
You had what?
Huh?
You had
I had a toothache all night.
Yeah.
I had that tooth filled in the Army. It hurt so bad I went to the dentist And he said, I'm not going to pull that and send you back up on the front lines. So he filled the darn thing, and it hurt worse then than it did when it was. I put up with it for about a month and it quit hurting. So then we went, in the morning we got up and got on the train to Cincinnati. We stayed in the Metropole Hotel down in Cincinnati. And we only had 3 days. Over the weekend, she had to go back to work and I had to go back to work on Monday. We went to Cincinnati Zoo. We got on what was the name of that boat? The Cincinnati Belle or something.
I don't know. Took us out to Coney Island.
We went to Coney Island. And the first thing I got on was what I call a Hellcat. And that was one ride. Well, a week before that, some sailor got on the thing drunk, raised up, and it cut his head off. He went through a tunnel. Yeah. So we stayed all day at Coney Island. Rode back on the Belle that night, and went back to the hotel. Went out to eat that night, and I don't know where we went.
We didn't go.
Oh, we went over to Covington to look, see where I'd entered into the army. I went to Fort Thomas. And we went over there and looked around. Come back and stayed Sunday. I guess Sunday night we got on the train to come back to Charleston. And we didn't have a place to stay. We went to stay all night with Burl. Then we rented a little apartment up on Lewis Street, just behind the Charleston General Hospital, and we had a wonderful time. That was Mama liked that better than anything else. Had a 2-room apartment, a bedroom and a front room, and had a bathroom. And what was their names?
I don't know. I have a card from them. They sent us a card from somewhere.
But anyway, I got laid off at the glass plant I was working at in the middle of August, and here I was, no job. Mom working at
And pregnant.
United Fuel. She got pregnant
Right off the bat.
right off the bat.
You didn't tell me nothing.
She told me she was innocent. She didn't know nothing.
Well, I didn't know nothing.
So, November, for the last of October, they was advertising for people to work in a steel mill in Cleveland. Well, I went for an interview and they gave me a job as a brick mason, and I got on the bus to go up. I left poor little mommy at the bus station, pregnant, by herself. And here I went up on East 55th Street in a Fleabag hotel with a boy I'd growed up with in Danville, and the name Bill Hudson. I stayed there about a month, and then another guy I was working with decided we was going to get us an apartment. And I don't remember what his name was, but anyway, we got an apartment on the 3rd floor. I was working day shift and he was working the evening shift. One night he come in and it rolled them blankets back. He looked down and he said, "Get out of that bed." I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You're eat up with the darn bed bugs." I had bled where those bed bugs had bit me that night. That sheet was blood red. And so we decided to go to sleep anyway. He got into bed with me, and we went down next morning and told that landlady that there's bed bugs all over the place. She said, "Well, I thought there was something up there." Well, anyway, she got somebody in that day and decontaminated the place. Well, I worked another month. And I went in one day to work, and they put me on top of one of those furnaces with a hole in it, and put an asbestos pad down. If that thing fell in, I'd have been incinerated. I had to patch the things, whether if it didn't, it would fall in. A hole would be a hole would far eat a hole in the brick. You had to take mud they had or cement and plaster the place over to keep it from falling in. Well, I decided right then, if that's what they had for me to do, I was coming back home. So I got on a bus and come back. Left my tool. I didn't even get my tools out of the locker. And that was we had the first Christmas in that little apartment. Well, I kept wondering what I was going to do. So I decided that I was going to go in the funeral business. And on Christmas Day, I went to Cedar Grove for an interview, and well, the day before Christmas. Anyway, I got on that bus that night, and when I got into Cedar Grove, I had a diarrhea. I had to get off that bus and go down the railroad track. I had messed all over myself. And I went up, Stella lived, his mom lived up Ward. I went up there and told her what happened.
Mother said it was awful smelly years old.
She fixed me a tub of hot water. And I put on a pair of George's pants and a pair of underwear. And got on the bus and come back. Well, I had to thumb back down to the, I don't know if I stayed there all night or not. I guess I did. No, I didn't either. I caught the bus, 11 o'clock bus down to Charleston. And the next morning I got up and got dressed and come back up to Cedar Grove, went to work in the funeral home. And Betty stayed in Charleston. I guess what time we moved, found us an apartment up in Cedar Grove, which she didn't like. She despised living there. But anyway, I was working in the funeral home in May, washing clothes, or washing cars, and she was staying with her mother. And I got a call, I'd better come to get her. So Bill Shari was one of the owners of the funeral home. He went up, got her in a car, and I was filthier than I had dirt all over me. I grabbed me a set of clothes, clean clothes, and put them over my arm, got in the car, went in the hospital dirty. He went with me and he registered her. And the doctor said, well, you just better go on. It'll be another 8 or 10 hours before the baby comes. Well, I said, I'm going to get me a cab and go over to my cousin's, take a bath and clean up. And I went over and took a bath, shaved, put the clean clothes on. And in the meantime, Stella and George had come down. And I got a cab, headed back for the hospital, walked upstairs. Stella said, come in here and see what you got. And a little baby girl, named her Linda.
Linda
Alice.
Linda Alice. Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me, at that time, they wouldn't let Mama out of bed for 10 days. She had to lay in bed flat on her back for 10 days.
Wow.
And we had a 2-room apartment in Mason's apartment. We found another place. And the outside toilet, we had in the back room apartment, had 2 rooms, kitchen and a bedroom. And the shower was out in the washroom.
So was the toilet. So
the
was
toilet too.
the commode. You had to go outside to use the commode.
But anyway, we lived there till I got ready to go to school. But the thing stands out more than anything else. His mom told me that Linda pooped in her pants and got 'em off, and she had took her hands and she was in the crib. She had smeared it all over
Painted
the wall,
walls with that poop.
and it was all over her. And that's where her Linda had her first birthday, was living there. And I worked 2 years in apprenticeship for cooks, or for prying at that time. And got on the bus and leaving poor little Ma. She was staying up with her mom then. Let her stay there, and I went to Philadelphia to school.
I worked for Mr. Brown over at the personnel office.
Worked for, they stayed there that winter, and then come back home. I went to Charleston to get a job, and got one down St. Albans in the funeral home, the first place I went. But he worked me like a dog, 7 days a week, 24/7, and I had one Sunday off a month, every 2 weeks. Well, what made me mad, my Sunday come up to go home, go up to see Betty. He went out and stayed all day long, and I didn't get to go. So Monday morning we had her out. I packed my clothes and left. And I went up to Cedar Grove, and George was looking for somebody to work, and so I went back to the funeral home and started then, and worked there till Betty she got pregnant with you then, and had to quit work. And I said, George, I can't live on what you're paying me. He said, well, I can't do any better than this. So I went to Charleston, got a job in Bartlett's Funeral Home. And I was looking places down there. Harry Hunter come in Charleston General when I was there one day, and he said, why don't you come over to Madison and work for me?
Okay, stop. Okay, remember where you are, Daddy.